Hi, my name is Katelyn Nixon. I have been writing for the Blog Brigade on Military One Source for 2 years now, and I've been a military spouse for 9 years. I'm currently stationed in College Station, Texas, which is different for us because it's a civilian town, and so it's the first time we've been living and stationed somewhere in the civilian world. And it's perfect for the article that is being published this month called The Outsider Hostess, because it's all about being new. And being new is something we're familiar with as military spouses. We've all been new, and new is sometimes hard. I don't know if you're like me. Most of the time when I go somewhere and we PCS somewhere, the first chance I get to meet other spouses or other people are usually through my spouse's unit and job. And it can be a little hard to connect with people. You know, work is a really easy conversation to connect with people on. And it's easier for people in the unit to connect and forge those easy conversations. But for the spouses, it can take a little bit longer to warm up. And if you're an introvert playing an extrovert, like I feel like I am so many times, then when you make the effort to host something or go to an event and you're really hoping to make a connection with someone, then it can be really defeating when after you leave, all the connections made were really about work and our spouses and the unit that they're with. And I just think that that's okay. And I think that it happens to a lot of us. So I'm just going to go over 3 tips that I talk about in my article really quickly with you guys. I know that we will all be able to relate with this and these tips. So don't set your expectations too high. I know for some spouses, I always think it's really awesome. They can move somewhere new and find all their emergency contacts like within the first day. They either, go knocking on doors in the neighborhood or find the Facebook group spouses page or meeting people at the park. For me, I'm always a spouse that it takes a lot longer to find that like emergency contact that you need. And that's okay. But it seems like for me, like the longer I wait and make connections with people, the lonelier that I get. And because of that, I set my expectations pretty high when I do get a chance to meet people. And it's been a really disappointment for me in the past. So I have to remind myself that the first couple of times I'm going to an event, I'm probably not going to make a really deep connection, but to still, be very natural. It is awkward at first, and I'm sure a lot of us have funny stories about putting ourselves out there and then having all these, kind of awkward situations and conversations until we kind of find our tribe and find our community. And that's totally normal. But I just have to remind myself to be natural and that it takes longer to make the deeper connections. And that's how it is for most of us. The second tip I want to go over is the deeper relationships are worth the wait. And that's one thing about military spouses is we learn how to build resilience. And I think a big part of that is how we're put in new situations all the time. And a lot of the time we're put in there without support at first, before we build our community up, before we make all of our, know our neighbors even, or make any friends in the area. We're put into situations that we don't know anyone, and we just have to keep putting ourselves in that situations over and over. And we learn how to be really resilient, and eventually we do make those friends. And for me and a lot of people I've heard say the same thing, I tend to make those deeper connections about a year before we PCS again. But even then, they're totally worth it. And building a tribe and a community in a different place just takes time. So keep at it, and it's always worth it in the end. And lastly, I just wanted to touch on, you're not alone going through this. We've all been there as a military spouse. And, that's the beautiful thing about being a military spouse is we can all relate with each other on so many levels automatically. And I think in the civilian world, you don't get that instant connection with people on the same level as a lot of military spouses. And because we've been put in the same situation, so we instantly connect on so many levels. So I think it's important, if you're feeling lonely in a new place and you haven't met your people yet, that you're not alone, even though it feels like it. Every other military spouse has been in those shoes before. So don't feel like you're alone And if you want to read more about my article, The Outsider Hostess, then it is on the Blog Brigade on the Military One Source. There are so many great writers and bloggers on the blog, and there's a lot on the topic of relationships. And if you're interested we're always looking for new voices to be heard. So I encourage you to comment if you relate to anything I've said on this live. And I really appreciate you for watching, and I appreciate Military One Source for having me on today. I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday. Bye.